I'm going to kind of walk around when we talk because that's what makes me feel comfortable. My name is Victor Flynn, and I'm a field representative for the Joint Landowners Coalition of New York. And I'm here tonight because some of the members of the coalition in this area contacted me saying they were worried about some of the things you might have been hearing from those opposing natural gas drilling. I have one question for you. Do you own your own home? Does anybody here rent? So you're all landowners. And I understand that you've been asked to recluse yourself if you're a farmer and own some land. The fact that you own a home in a small city lot, if that's where your home is, makes you a landowner, so reclusing yourself should not be a problem. Or you should not have to recluse yourself because a lot the size of 50 by 100 in the town, if it's in a drilling unit, will get an average check of $500 a month based on the fact that there's a well pad that hooks them in a production unit. And I'd also like to add that there are certain benefits to drilling that will come to the town. And do you all know what ad valorem is? The ad valorem tax? Well, I can get an ad valorem tax presentation up here. An ad valorem tax is a tax that you pay on your property. It's a property tax, a real property tax. Although it's considered real property, those taxes stay right here in the community. When a well is done and it goes into production, that gas that comes out of that well is taxed, and that money stays in the community. For instance, one well in the city of, I'll use the town of Greenfield, which is the closest one I can think of. So yeah, will produce $1.7 million in the tax revenue that stays right in that town over a 20-year period. And the ad valorem tax that I'll present to you, the presentation that will be presented will be specific to what's in this ground underneath your town by the DEC's own figures. And it's a very good presentation. If you want that, I can set it up for you. You should not recluse yourself from voting if it comes to a vote, whether or not you're going to put in moratoria. But I would strongly recommend that you don't put in moratoria. I don't know if you're aware. The only case is lodging that brought the two lawyers from Ithaca that are pushing for moratoria. The only case they have litigated, they have lost. And they lost it pretty hard. Judge Ferris Levis in Binghamton, instead of proof, I'll give you a copy of this lawsuit. Instead of proof, respondents produced only conclusions. Respondents have not explained how, if the activities that are banned by law are such a grave threat that they will suddenly no longer exist on December 31st, 2013, when their law expires. And they're talking about law 6 that Binghamton put in place to put a moratorium on drilling. Respondents clearly are not relying on anticipated regulations from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to alleviate any health and safety threats that may be posed by this activity. And this local law clearly states in its findings that regulations that relate to the gas exploration and extraction are incapable of protecting the health and safety of the residents. The 2-year sunset renders respondents' claim that this is solely a law in the exercise of the police powers of Binghamton in their illusionary. This activity cannot be so detrimental that it must be banned. They're saying don't even ban it. But only for 2 years, particularly when it's clear that the city is not engaging in any investigation. You heard stories about how there's 113 towns that signed moratoria and a few have signed bans. None of them are actively engaging in a study. It was just a political statement. That's all it was. Why would you make a political statement against a thing that you're just going to bring life back to your community? And that's my opinion. It might not be yours, but that's fine. Studies or other activities are in the interim in order to determine if there is a way to alleviate any harm to the people of the city from the future activity of drilling. Local law, and this is very important, 1106 in Binghamton's inclusion of a sunset provision leads to no other rational conclusion except this law is a moratorium. The City Council's bare conclusion is the findings of fact that this law was enacted pursuant to the police power cannot change the truth. But basically, that's it, the truth. It cannot change the character of the law. The comments made at the Binghamton City Council work sessions clearly show that the drafters of the law believed it was a moratorium as well as the corporate council and some of the members of the council. I will leave you a copy of this judgment. I recommend that you read it. Tomorrow, I have a radio. You can put it on channel 1290 AM, and you'll get the Bob Joseph Show. Helen Slage, who also goes by the name of Elsa Holden, that she was introduced in the town of Sydney because they don't want, sometimes they don't want the towns to know they're a husband and wife team. And that's what they did in the town of Sydney. David Slodgy spoke one week, then Helen showed up the next week and spoke under the name of Helen Holden, her maiden name. And that's well documented, believe me. I'd like to tell you that everybody, land rights is involved. Not just the pro-drilling, not just the anti-drillers. Everybody's land rights involved. And that's why they have compulsory integration. That's why 20% of the holdings in a town, law 234 and 235 New York State Code, say that if 20% of the town wants drilling, then that town is entitled to be drilled. As long as that's the way, you have to read 234 and 235. I got that right, Rachel, 234, 235 New York Code? And that's all it takes. If 20% of the land in the town wants to be drilled, then they have the right to be drilled, and it can't be banned. Now, the Slodgies are going to come here. Have they been here yet? Oh, the attorney, Slodgies out of Ithaca? No. Okay, well, I'm sure they're going to come because they're hitting all the towns that are, well, they're hitting closer to Binghamton in the 5 targeted counties right now. But they're going to come here. They're trying to get as many towns as they can for the political purpose of making that statement to the governor of New York that nobody wants drilling in New York, and that's not true. I strongly recommend that you take a tour of Chesapeake or Cabot. I can get you a tour with a drilling company. There's another group putting on a tour, and Vera Scruggins of Numo for his tour guide. They're not allowed on the well pads. They're not allowed to go to the compressor stations. I can get you on the well pads and the compressor stations and a real tour where you can ask real questions and get real answers. But you're not going to get answers with my daughter, I gave you a head through head, things like that. And that's what you're going to hear from these people. I've heard it. And it's on their websites. I gave you my business card. I gave you 2 business cards so you can share it. And I only have 1 left. I'm glad I donate that one too. But for you people to sit here and have to go through hearing after hearing and hear the same old stories, and I haven't been here, so I could be wrong, but some of my members have called me and expressed that you've been hearing a lot of information from anti-drillers over the past 4 or 5 meetings, and that nobody from the pro side has been here to talk to you. I'd like to tell you, first of all, I'm very pro-drilling. I own 5 acres of land. I'm not going to get rich. I'm not going to get rich at all. But I got into this because of, when I first got into it, I was a member of NYRA, New York Residents Against Drilling. I went to the first meeting that I went to, and the information they put out, it just opened up a light in my head that said, hey, I got to look at this further, and I went off on my own, and I went to the other side. I couldn't stay with them because the information was just so far gone that you couldn't believe it. And go on their website, NYRA.org. The first 15 questions they ask when they bring petition to people's house: do you want water poison? Would you like your water poison? Do you want light shining in your house all night long? Well, then you better sign this because that's what's going to happen. That's what they do. And that's how they get their signatures. They don't tell the truth. I attended a meeting in the town of Binghamton. I hate to call anybody a liar, and I'm not calling anybody a liar. I attended a meeting in the town of Binghamton last night, and you can look at it on WICZ Fox 40. That's all you have to type on your toolbar. And you'll see the meeting was very unruly because the people that were there were asking for the truth, and they weren't ready for that. There were 30, 40 people there asking, that's not true, we know better than that. And when they got confronted with the truth, Stan Scobie, the man that is against drilling, he's a professor out of the University of Binghamton, who went out of state, came back just 2 years ago, started telling people to shut up and sit down. That's no way to have a debate. That's no way to have a public informational meeting. And that's what you're up against when you have these antis trying to sequester the truth. I'm here for questions. If you have any questions about drilling, I can set you up with a tour. You have my card. I can get you a tour with Chesapeake. Mike got you on the Chesapeake. And who's the guy from Cabot? I forgot his name. George Stark? George Stark, and I can get you a tour, a real tour, and it's not going to cost you $15 like it will a person with Vera Scruggins. It'll be free. You just got to get yourselves there. So it'll cost you gas, carpool, and I can get you there. If you can't get there, I'll get you there. I'll make sure you have transportation there. So I'm just saying, don't listen to the hype. Don't recluse yourself from a vote because you're not a large landowner. It's just crazy to hear that. I don't know when you guys must be a town lawyer. I think I'm not a lawyer, but I think I'm right when I say, what's the difference between owning a half an acre and 500 acres? The only difference is the amount of money you're gonna get from a royalty check or anything else, you're still gonna get money. So if their argument is recluse yourself because they're a landowner, that's wrong. That's not right. You don't recluse yourself from this issue. Vote on it, you guys can discuss it amongst yourselves, you talk about it. If you have any questions, I'm here for you, you got my card. I can send you all kinds of information, and I'll be glad to come back to any meeting you want me to come back to. If you feel like it might be necessary to have someone here that can stand up and say, what that person there just told you is not the truth, I have no problem standing up. And I'm talking about civilly, I'm not gonna get in a fist fight. I'm talking about being civil. I can stand up and say, look, that person that just spoke before me, didn't tell you the truth, didn't give you the entire facts. And that's the problem with this debate right now. They're not putting out the entire fact. They're nitpicking. The water in Pennsylvania, y'all heard about this author's home, the Brown Jug family? That home just sold for $167,000. They bought it in 2005 for $150,000. Okay, what happened to that statement? The land value will decrease if we allow drilling. That's a $17,000 profit in 7 years, which isn't bad in this economy. And they're saying in a drilling economy, it's going down. That's just not the case. Victoria Soyster offered $800,000 for her home, and only cost her $300,000 to build it. That included the land too. The guy that lives right across the street from her, I'm sorry, he was the one. He sold it, didn't he? He sold it for $800,000. Yeah, he sold his land for $800,000. Scott Eli, the guy who says, my water is so contaminated, I can no longer live in my home, built an 7,500 square foot home on the same lot that was contaminated, using the same law. You have to get out there. You should go on this tour. You should not listen to all hype, because that's what it is. You're getting a lot of hype from a lot of people who have never been to Pennsylvania and who just don't want it because they don't want their viewscape ruined. They don't want to see a drill rig. They think those drill rigs are going to be there forever. Like flaring in New York. Everybody talks about the flames in the sky for 2 weeks at a time. The New York State guys addresses that. There is not going to be any flaring. They're going to recapture the gas and they're going to put it back into the pipes and there's not going to be any flaring. I'm not saying that's 100% definite because nobody knows on some basis. Hasn't come out yet, but the part that I reviewed, that's what they're going to do. They're going to capture. They talk about, it's a pond escape. You don't know what's coming out because the gas companies use their own meters. The Joint Landowners Act Coalition advocated for meters that were bypassed. Instead of being bypassed when you take a meter reading, you actually shut them off and you get the actual meter reading and you don't lose the landowner doesn't lose any royalties. We advocated that if I leased my land and this gentleman here was next to me and he didn't want to lease or he didn't want to sign up for it because he was against it, we advocated for a law that got put into place where he's going to get the same royalty check I'm going to get, where before you would have got 12%, 12.5%, and then we took away 4% tax and cost. But now he's going to get the same 21% I'm going to get because we advocated that because we are trying to be fair all across the board. I would love to tell you all kinds of great stories about gas drilling. I can tell you that the United States natural gas industry has a 99.7% success rate. There is a small failure rate, but Lisa Jackson and the EPA, and we did a phone call survey of all 27 states that are drilling. In 2010, we called them up, our political committee on the GLC. We talked to their environmental control officers or representatives from each state and asked them, have you ever had a water aquifer polluted? The answer was no. We asked them again, just this past month, we called them again because the water issue will not die. And yes, there has been problems with gas blowups in Pennsylvania. They did rush the drill, but guess what? They're starting to pick up New York's regulations. They added the extra casing. They used to have an 8-hour clear time on the cement. It's now 16 hours. They doubled it. And it might have gone to 24 hours. But the 16 hours is working. They're not having the blowups that they were having. The accidents aren't there. It's been 2 years since they had a major accident. About a year ago, a road trucker dumped some fracking mud in the forest. That all made the newspapers, and boy, that was the biggest story in Binghamton for a month. It's on the front page of the paper every day because the Binghamton newspapers are destroyed. If you read a Binghamton newspaper, you're going to see the gentleman that runs that newspaper stood up in a meeting and said, I'm against it, and I'm going to use my paper to fight. And he meant that. He meant that. So the information you're getting in the paper, and that's on tape too. He said that while he was being filmed. So The information you get out of the newspapers isn't always the best information. The information you get from, by typing fracking on your computer is going to come from anti-fracking groups, because fracking was a word that was invented by the antis. I'm talking about fracking with a K. The way you really spell fracking is F-R-A-C-I-N-G, not F-R-A-C-K-I-N-G. They put the K in there to make it dirty, for obvious reasons. If you have any questions at all, feel free to ask.
Thank you.
Thank you.